so far we've covered 8 of Ricky Gervais's projects, and it's clear why he's regarded as one of the many kings of comedy. But we've still got 2 more shows, 2 films, and his recent Netflix comedy special which came out Christmas Day last year to remind us all of the trajectory this edgy comedy god's career's going in. We've got a lot to get through in this final part, so let's dive straight in with 2012's Derek.
Derek's a show. How did you do that? How's the pitch making?
The best review I've ever had. Derek's a show.
Derek's a show.
Put that on the DVD. Derek, a show.
Derek is mental. I'm talking about the show, obviously. Not the concept of Derek as a show, and the fact that it's almost universally loved is absolutely mental to me. Not saying it's bad, but if any other comedian, even 11 years ago when this show aired, said, I'm going to make a mockumentary style sitcom set in an old people's home where the main character is a mentally challenged man and here's the twist, I'm going to play him. Best case scenario, there's at least picket signs outside of whatever studio is crazy enough to commission 3 series of it. But no one cares. But that's just the Ricky Gervais effect. He's curated the perfect career persona where he can get away with everything. But in terms of Derek, I do believe his heart was in the right place, and I don't think he does anything in the show overly offensive or mean-spirited. But as Sia and Rosie O'Donnell taught us, intention isn't everything when you're a famous face putting art out into the world for everyone to see.
Jesse's delicious! He's gonna take me today to get a new toilet seat because mine got broken and was sliding!
The main reason why I've just never been able to get into Derek is Ricky's portrayal. It's not for me to say how accurate his character is to real mentally challenged individuals, but I just can't watch Ricky waddle around like a penguin and make this fucking face every 5 seconds and fully believe his character.
I mean, when they're dead, they're not sad anymore. And I'd rather be sad than anyone else.
This is a huge hurdle you've got to get over to find any enjoyment out of this show, and I just can't. Which is a shame. The characterisation of Derek has clearly been done sensitively and from a good place, and there are some lines and moments that stuck out to me during the series of being really positive and heartwarming validations and perspectives.
You ever been tested for autism?
I'm not get tests. If I am autistic, will I die?
No.
Will I have to go into hospital and do experiments on me? And
No.
will they change me in any way? Will I be the same person?
Yes.
Don't worry about it then.
The show's funny at times, but honestly I found myself enjoying and laughing at the outtakes more than anything that actually happens in the show. Carl's pretty good in it, Kev's just playing the exact same character this actor always does. Also, the tone of this show is so sappy. Sappy equals crappy. I've been saying it for years. The sappy piano melody that plays throughout the show, the forced sappy dialogue and sappy things, and the sappiness. At least for me, it kills any potential emotional impact the show could have, because they're trying way too hard. It never feels like this show is being written without the sole purpose of making the audience cry. The characters and plot points seem to only exist to squeeze as many tears out the viewer, and if you're not buying it, what else does this show offer? Now, this is the first show Ricky's worked on without the help of Stephen Merchant, and while I believe Ricky does know comedy and knows emotions, it's the humanity and relatability Stephen brings that every single one of Ricky's recent projects has been missing. And the desperate attempts at manipulation, the sappy piano, the plot points designed just to try and get you to cry, it all just feels like it stems from Ricky trying to win you over because of the initial problem of trying to get over him doing a disabled impression. Again, I don't have a problem with a neurotypical able-bodied person playing someone with autism in media. It's a case-by-case basis. I don't give a fuck. With cases like Sia's music, there were much bigger issues at play than just someone pretending to be mentally disabled. But I do find it baffling that Ricky's weird fanboys and Ricky himself's most prevalent topics of conversation today are cancel culture and freedom of speech, when I've seen not even close to a whimper regarding him doing what almost every other comedian, actor or writer wouldn't dare to do. Again, I don't have an inherent problem with Ricky playing this character, but the fact you're so easily accepted by the public to play this character without question, does that not tell you that you're not actually as edgy or controversial as you might have thought? Why not D for Derek? In the year 2016 AD, Ricky Gervais released 2 movies. They're both extremely bad, but I'm going to start with the least offensive one of the two, which is a Netflix original film called Special Correspondents. Special Correspondents was written by Ricky Gervais and was directed by Ricky Gervais, starring Ricky Gervais and the Hulk from Hulk. So a famous news journalist and his sound technician are tasked with covering a developing civil war in Ecuador, but on their way to the airport, for some reason, Ricky throws their passports in a garbage truck, which means now they have to cover the story of Ecuador in New York whilst pretending that they're in Ecuador. But then while they're in New York, some news comes out that they were kidnapped in Ecuador, which means now they've got to go to Ecuador for real. But then obviously, because this is the most predictable plot ever written, 15 minutes after getting to Ecuador, they get kidnapped and now they have to escape Ecuador and go back to New York. And I pooed myself. Nothing terrible about this one, it's just painfully standard and isn't really funny, intense, engaging or interesting. If it was just your run-of-the-mill, low-effort cash grab film, I wouldn't really be as harsh on it, but it's just the fact that Ricky Gervais chose to make this. I don't know if he just saw something in this film that did not translate at all, or if it was just to make a quick million to add to his pile, but I would love to see the Ricky Gervais fanboys trying to defend this one. But yeah, the film just kind of happens, you know, the plot happens, the characters kind of do things. Film ends really awkwardly, like they definitely didn't write an ending for this film. Ricky Gervais and Kelly MacDonald just kind of walk away like awkwardly improvising. It seems like they're improvising.
This is like the end of the movie.
A low budget movie, maybe.
And it was a great choice. Reminds me of the end of the Graduate. Super bland, super boring. E. Let's move on.
The film of The Office.
Right. It's not the film of The Office, no. It's Ricky doing a film about David Brent.
And he goes on, doesn't he go on tour?
I think he's sort of making it as a musician, or trying to make it as a musician.
Oh, okay. But you're not involved with that?
I'm not involved with that.
Has he dropped you?
He's no, I just he's
A couple months later, for some reason, Ricky thought it would be a good idea to revisit the most beloved character he's ever created for a David Brent solo film called David Brent Life on the Road. I don't think it takes much to explain why this film was just a bad idea from the very start. How about we make a film showing what David Brent is up to after the events of The Office? No, let's not do that. In the series finale of The Office, we got 2 major payoffs. One being Tim and Dawn's smooching, and the other being a tiny, wincy-twincy glimmer of hope for David Brent. Hope that he can be genuinely happy and learn to let go of his insecurities and desperation to please others while still staying true to himself. Now, a film set 20 years later can do one of 2 things. Either acknowledge and solidify that change, show that he's grown into himself and is leading a happy life, which would be boring and unfunny, or treat that glimmer of hope in the finale as meaningless, strip him of any nuance and depth, and show him desperately trying to start a music career whilst acting as a hollow caricature of the man he used to be. And spoilers, but they went with the latter. David Brent in this film is just annoying. Not like an endearing or tragic or interesting way like he used to be. He's just an irritating man. That laugh, by the way, get used to hearing it because it never stops.
Here we go.
Yeah. We are foregone conclusion.
Clearly one of the driving motivations for Ricky to poop this film out were the songs heard throughout. These moments were pretty popular throughout The Office, and I'm sure Ricky looks up to shows like Flight of the Conchords and just wanted to do that. But he was already doing that. For years, Ricky's been putting out random David Brent songs onto YouTube. Why can't you just stick to that, or put out an album as David Brent, or go on tour or something? You know, I bet you sell loads of tickets. The reason Brent's songs were so funny in The Office is because they were real. You know, they felt like David was putting in real effort and took real inspiration to write them. They were melodramatic and cliche and weird, but they had a believable competence to them. But the opening song to this, I'm gonna be generous and call it a film, is full of lines that make no sense for David Brent to sit down and write. This was just a quick joke in the office, a classic Brent moment.
I can be in my office, yeah, bombing along at 70 miles an hour plus, 70 miles an hour tops.
His initial reaction to this moment was to seem calm and cool about his sometimes reckless driving. You know, this is what I do, this is just another day at the office. But then his second reaction after remembering the camera's presence is to downplay his previous statement as to not end up in any potential legal trouble or be seen as a bad role model to the public. So this same joke makes no sense and therefore isn't funny in the context of him consciously writing it into a song. David's #1 goal is to always seem cool, relatable, funny, entertaining, sexy or caring, but for some reason he's so self-conscious about the public's perception of him exceeding the national speed limit that he feels the need to clarify it in the opening song to this fucking monstrosity that Steve probably begged him not to write. Life as a toad. That's all I got. A gripe I always have when a show or film attempts a specific style of direction is when it's half-arsed. This film would have been miles better if it really pushed for the documentary style, but it's so detached from reality that it makes the style redundant. The camera quality, framing of most of the shots, and the coverage completely goes against the documentary style to a point where it would have just made more sense to shoot it like a normal film. Doc Brown's pretty funny and likeable throughout, the guy from Afterlife is pretty good, but the rest of the band members don't even seem like actors. I don't know if they're real musicians or what, but wouldn't it have made more sense to get people who can act? Quiz time! In David Brent Life on the Road, how many times does David say the N-word with a hard R? Is it A, 0, B, 1, C, 2, or D, 3? Trick question, it's 5. Now, what would be the point of this film if there wasn't some sort of arc for our main character? Well, the reason we sat through this irritating mess was to watch David learn that he doesn't have to be liked by everyone to be happy. And in the end, he even meets the perfect girl to prove that there is someone for everyone. This is just his arc in The Office. And just to be clear, I'm not saying that the ending to this film is anywhere near as appropriate or satisfying as the ending to The Office. Because it's not. For the entire runtime, David's just being weird and annoying and stupid and embarrassing. Obviously until the last 10 minutes when everyone changes their mind for no reason.
It was definitely right to end it when it did. I mean, to come back now would just be mad, wouldn't it?
Everyone must agree that you couldn't carry it on for years and years.
There was nowhere really left for us to take it.
It's just not even a debate for me that was the right thing.
There's not even a part of me that thinks, I wonder if we could do another one. We just mustn't.
This film definitely isn't without its funny moments. There are a couple jokes that got out of me, but I don't care. This film just shouldn't have been made. Definitely not if the only thing to get out of it is a couple of... So yeah, it's bad. Shouldn't have been made. And ironically, this version of David Brent is Ricky Gervais' best performance as a mentally challenged man. But you know, am I being too hard on this film? You know, Ricky, he went out, he tried something different. He loves this character, you know, as we all do. And I think maybe the ending to The Office just wasn't enough. Maybe he wanted something deeper. He wanted more hope for this character. He wanted a happier ending because you know, that's what we all want. And when you build a character from the ground up that you have such an attachment to, such love for, you know, it becomes part of you, you know. And maybe that was what Ricky set out to do with this. Maybe there was a part of him that felt like David needed that hope and happiness because maybe Ricky needed it as well.
So, and everything works out, doesn't it? You think you want one thing along the way, and then you realise you needed something else. Life's a struggle with little beautiful surprises that make you want to carry on through all the shit to the next little beautiful surprise.
Just kidding, it sucked. Stinky poo-poo. Let's move on.
You could binge watch the entire first season of Afterlife instead of watching this show. That's a show about a man who wants to kill himself because his wife dies of cancer, and it's still more fun than this, okay?
I'm going to cut to the chase. Afterlife's really bad. A few years ago I attempted to watch it because of the constant rave reviews it was getting, but after being subjected to the most unlikable protagonist ever created for 25 minutes, and the majority of the comedy being centred around calling someone a cunt or fat or a ginger fat cunt, I dreaded to think that every episode would be the exact same, so I stopped watching there and then. But years later my fears were made reality, as I sat through 3 seasons of everything I disliked all those years ago. Let's start with the positives, because I'm fully aware that the people who like this show truly love it with a burning, blubbering passion, and I don't want my negative experience with this show to devalue anyone else's positive one. It's shot pretty competently. You know, everything's in focus. The dog's acting is good. Alright, on to the negatives. So let's start with the character of Tony. Justify it all you want, he's dealing with some pretty intense depression and grief, but at least for the entirety of season 1, he's painfully unlikable. He just brings everyone down, he's bitter and rude and annoying to a degree I don't think was intended, which is a lot of slack left to the ensemble of panel show comedians and Ricky Gervais's mates to pick up. And as soon as you don't care about any of the characters, suddenly the 9 hours of television this show has to offer becomes a massive chore. And this is mainly because of the way it's structured. Afterlife is structured as a strange combination of a small town drama soap and a comedy sitcom, but the elements taken from both don't gel together at all. Nothing builds in this show. A typical episode will have Tony wake up with his dog, watch a video of his dead wife, go to work, call someone a cunt, walk down the street, call someone a cunt, go see his dad, sit on a bench with Harriet Jones and then go home. And this happens every single episode until the show ends. And usually this repetitive scene-to-scene structure in other sitcoms would be fine because the episode would be telling its own story throughout. But remember, this isn't just a sitcom, it's also a drama.
Hi mate, you got any money?
Yeah.
What?
Focusing on only one big story, and so all these repetitive scenes bleed into one another, and sitting in and out I couldn't tell you what actually happens in any episode. Although I do find episode 4 of season 1 very memorable. There's one actually really beautiful moment. So Tony befriends the local heroin addict and learns he's addicted to heroin because his girlfriend died. They chat and they realise that they have a lot in common. Tony tries out heroin a couple times, but one night they talk and the addict says to him that they're not the same because Tony hasn't given up yet. And if he had enough money, he'd buy all the drugs he could and overdose. So Tony, so generously, and out of the kindness of his heart, gives him all the money in his wallet, and the guy dies of an overdose that very night. Am I mental? I really hope I've completely missed the point of this subplot or misinterpreted it or something, because this isn't treated as a bad thing. When Tony first gave him the money, my first thought was it was to make him see that he didn't actually want to die. But Tony doesn't seem to feel guilt at all when he finds out that he later overdosed after buying drugs through the money that Tony gave him. He never repents, he never talks about it ever again. I'm truly baffled at what this subplot was trying to say about anything. So yeah, half of the dramatic elements just don't work at all. But you know, this is Ricky Gervais we're talking about. He's not a dramatic writer, is he? He's a comedic writer. He's a comedian. But this show isn't funny either. And FYI, the comedy is subjective argument just doesn't hold up in this instance. I know there are people who find Afterlife funny, and I just don't. But the reason I don't is because the jokes are objectively either lazy or predictable. For example, use the word cunt or fuck as many times as you'd like in your joke. It's great at adding emphasis or reinforcing a type of emotion you want to get across in the joke, anger or contempt or such and such. It should be used to enhance a joke. But in Afterlife, it's not even used as a crutch, but as the foundation the joke is built on.
I'm not a pedo, and if I was, you'd be safe, you tubby little ginger cunt.
Here, the joke is simply that small children are usually seen as innocent, and Tony has overreacted to the situation and called him a word that contrasts this innocence to a major degree. Take the swear word out, it doesn't weaken the joke, it makes it so that there isn't a joke.
Your friends here, though?
They're not friends. They're cunts, all of them. And when I outlive one of them, they bring a new cunt in to take their place. Cunts.
Here, the joke is that elderly people are usually seen as innocent, and this old woman has unexpectedly said some bad words. Take the bad words out, and it doesn't weaken the joke, it makes it so that there isn't a joke. Now, is this just a case of my humour changing, and I've become a boring person who doesn't find swearing in jokes funny anymore? Or has Ricky's writing lost its depth or wit it used to have?
This is my story, my memories, my tribute to my dead wife.
Would you stop going on about your fucking dead wife?
The joke here isn't that Ben Stiller said the word fuck. The F word here is purely used to emphasise the contempt Ben Stiller has for this poor man that has slowly been building throughout the episode. Take away the F word and it slightly weakens the joke, it lessens the impact of his harsh outburst, but the joke still stands on its own. One of my biggest pet peeves with Ricky's new material is when he forces his religious or political ideologies into the dialogue. It always feels unnatural, it always feels like he's trying to preach us his beliefs that I don't care about. Like the amount of times we'll get like a 4-minute scene of Tony sitting at work and then someone will come in and go, I saw a ghost last night, Tony, and then Tony will go, no, ghosts don't exist, and then they'll go, yeah they do, how do you explain all the people who believe in ghosts? And Tony goes, well, there's no substantial evidence to support the claim that ghosts exist. Shut up. Literally shut up. I don't give a fuck. Tell the story you're writing. I know you don't believe in ghosts.
How can you not believe in God?
Which one?
What do you mean?
But there are about 3,000 to choose from that have been, people who believe in
I've done some reading, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so...
You know how you don't believe in all those other gods I mentioned? That's how I don't believe in yours.
You deny one less God than I do. You don't believe in 2,999 gods, and I don't believe in just one more.
Right.
What, the Big Bang? Everything came from nothing? That's impossible.
You're right, God did it.
Right.
Because we straight away say, well, who made God? So, where did God come from?
He's always been around.
And if they say, well, he's always been around, well, let's just say the universe has then. Let's just cut out the middleman. It saves time.
Tony's character in Afterlife is basically just Ricky Gervais if he was grieving and miserable. And I'm sure in some ways this was the best thing Ricky could have done, if this is the show he wanted to write. If he has no real personal experience with deep loss or depression or suicidal thoughts, then the most honest thing you can do is just write yourself verbatim. But similar to his newest stand-ups, I do get sick of hearing the same thing over and over again. His hatred of people eating too loud, or his atheism, or his hatred of fat people, which comes into full effect here. And while we're on the topic of fat people, Ricky Gervais has proven to be the most fat-phobic man to ever exist. And like, I don't care, I'm not offended, I mean I'm not fat, but when you rely on the same joke for, what, 20 years? Change the tune, man! Ricky's been beating this fat dead horse ever since his first project. And I've checked, every single project I've reviewed so far has at least one joke aimed towards fat people.
So, I don't believe it. Look at this.
If we're handing out insults for being fat, let's have a go at him. Look at him.
Big fat hippo. I land. This bear is coming toward a big, lumbering, eating machine, like that happy chap over there.
They are Ethiopian peasants who used to own houses, land.
He's a lying little sod. He's been eating. He's got a pot belly and everything.
You want to do a day's filming with Helena Bonham Carter for shit money while a fat bloke with a beard does your lines for you because you're so crap at acting?
You see these fat people in pubs going, well, he's lost a few yards up front. Yeah, it'd be great. You fucking score a goal then, fatty.
I don't want any fat people to feel uncomfortable at one of my gigs, so next time buy 2 seats. Right?
Okay. Derek? Douglas?
Alright, Kev.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Even Special Correspondents, where Ricky plays a kind, insecure, feeble man, still finds the time to take the piss out of a fatty.
I need to eat.
I know a good place.
I'm quite hungry. This guy needs to eat.
I just find it hard to have any emotional investment in a character when they're just spouting the idealism of a man I've been watching spout for my entire life. Series 2 wasn't as annoying as Series 1, mainly because our main character is no longer set on making other people's lives as miserable as possible, which, you know, is always good for a main character. Although, sitting here writing the script today, I have no idea what happens in this series. I remember scenes here and there, you know, vague moments, some characters, but in terms of plot or anything substantial, I remember nothing. And I could so easily go and refresh my memory right now. It's only been a week since I binged the last 2 seasons, but my TV, it's 2 meters away from me. I could so easily just go and skim through the show, but honestly, I couldn't care less. When I first started Afterlife, I had a deep hatred for this show, but after forcing myself to finish it, call it exposure therapy, call it Stockholm Syndrome, I do not care anymore. I can completely understand how this show can be deeply comforting for some people who are experiencing loss or depression. This show can make them feel like they're not alone, a comforting reassurance that whatever you're going through, it's all part of the human condition and you're not alone in it. But for anyone trying to watch this as an entertaining piece of media, bad luck. I did intend on going deeper into this show, but it sucked everything from me. Afterlife, the show that sucks you fucking dry. Whatever redeeming qualities this show has are certain themes and tiny morsels of comfortability that I don't have the willpower to dig for. As will come clear when I get to Ricky's most recent project, Armageddon, I personally feel like Ricky's writing has been stripped of any of the wit and intelligence it used to have, and is now just pandering to an audience he's accumulated of ride-or-die idiots who salivate every time one of their extremely basic ideologies are validated by Ricky. If you truly love this show and find immense comfort and entertainment from it, then I genuinely do understand. I'm not lumping every one of his fans into that description because I'm a fan of him myself, but as for this show, it's simply not for me. If you disagree, let me know in the comments. If you're extremely angry at me at my assessment of a TV show, then reevaluate your entire life. It's an E or a D or so, I don't give a shit anymore. On Christmas Day 2023, Santa came down the chimney and left a big pile of Ricky Gervais under the tree. A brand new stand-up called Armageddon. This is his newest project to date, and I was so excited to see how Ricky has developed comedically. It's been a year and a half since his last stand-up special, Supernature, and I was excited to see the growth he's undergone since then. Now, during this review, I'm gonna say some things. I'm going to give some opinions, and I might even state them as facts. As we all know, comedy's subjective, and so if I say something like, this isn't funny, it's a quick rebuttal to say something along the lines of, fuck you, Ricky Gervais has more talent and monies in his left ear than you have in your entire body. And whilst that may be true, I'm still going to try and voice my criticisms with this special to the best of my ability. Because as I've said before, I believe Ricky's stand-ups are getting worse and worse, with this rightfully being the laziest, least funny, most predictable and most eye-rolling special yet. As I've said before, my preference with Ricky's stand-ups were when he played more into the perception the audience had of him, which allowed not only the satire and commentary in his comedy to be more easily spotted and in turn funnier, but also made him feel like he was always one step ahead of the audience. But nowadays he just seems so pandering. He's telling the audience exactly what they want to hear, which would be fine if his whole stand-up personality wasn't built around pushing the envelope and being edgy. The reason why people fell in love with Ricky's comedy wasn't because he was offensive, it was because he didn't care whether he was offensive. That's the whole point, he didn't care about people's perception of him.
I think Schindler's List is a fantastic film. I didn't watch it at the cinema, actually. I got it out on video about a year later by mistake, because I'd never heard of it, and I was in Blockbuster sort of late one night. I was a bit drunk, and I thought it was a porn film. No, because I saw 18 certificate, top shelf, and I thought, oh, black and white, dodgy home movie, you know. German sounding, they're the best. And what swung it was that quote on the back from Barry Norman, have a box of Kleenex ready. Rubbish, I used about 2. There was a shower scene.
But nowadays, he does care whether people think he's offensive. He actively wants them to think he's offensive. And that's not funny.
Right, I've got a woke joke, right? You remember those jokes we used to have when we were kids, like doctor jokes, like, doctor, I keep thinking I'm a pair of curtains. Well, pull yourself together then, right? I've done a woke version of that brought it up to today's standards, right? So, bloke goes to the doctor. He goes, doctor, I keep thinking I'm a pair of curtains. And the doctor goes, well, you are then.
Regardless of your political opinions, is this not just a lazily written joke? By the setup, you know exactly where it's going. Like, surely it's not just me who was hearing this exact same joke 5 years ago. Oh, if they're gonna be whatever they want to be, I'm gonna be a tree. I'm gonna be a chair. Then I'm gonna be a chair. If they can be whatever they want to be, I'm gonna be a chair. And now we have Britain's funniest comedian unironically using it in a joke in 2023. Is this a fever dream? Regardless of the fact that I've heard like randomers tell this exact same joke 5 years ago, told better by the way. Like, what is that setup? Oh, you know those jokes that go that sort of way. Well, this is what I'm doing here is basically a woke version of that joke, but with. You're a professional comedian. You do this as a living, man. It's structured as a lazy first draft that he just didn't even think to refine. Which, of course, he hasn't rewritten or refined because he's accumulated a stadium full of mouth-breathing idiots that will laugh at anything he says.
Apparently, it's 2019. Most people still more than happy to laugh at transgender people. Not as comfortable laughing at Ricky Gervais yet, I've discovered. That's the line.
And this is the pothole that I fear Ricky and his audience has fallen down. There are interesting conversations you can have about the new surge of social politics nowadays. There's smart comedy to be found there, but when you obsess more about the 1% of people actually truly offended by what you're saying, you lose sight of everyone else. Now you can't even say Ricky's comedy isn't funny without someone saying, well, you're offended. Yeah, you know what I'm offended by? Uninspired pandering comedy that's been said 1 million times. I've never been more annoyed by an audience in a stand-up show before. Ricky could say the most basic, standard take ever, and all you'll hear from the audience is,
I opened them up, they were shit. Now, I don't know what sweatshop they were made in, or what little 8-year-old Chinese kid made them, but he should be fucking punished. Because in China, there are 10 million Chinese paedophiles. 10 million Chinese paedophiles in China, and there's not enough kids. Because they've been restricting the birth. There's all these poor pedos, and they're going, where's all the fucking kids? Like, you know, fuck me, we're having to double up here, and...
Hey, yeah. What are you clapping about? See, these sorts of things Ricky is saying aren't clever or, funny to me, I guess. But they're getting this sort of reaction from the audience because they're offensive. Because they're objectively offensive. And he's garnering this sort of reaction because the audience has been bred to think that, oh, no other comedian would say anything like this. Yes, they would. There are so many comedians, so many popular comedians out right now saying way worse stuff than this, but they format them into jokes. They make them funny.
I just thought of a joke then, I can't do it. It is actually too offensive. Okay.
Do it, Ricky. Come on, say it. And there's this one really annoying laugh that you can hear every now and then, and it's fucking annoying. What the fuck is that? Being such a fan of Ricky's old material, I feel like I'm actually being punished for watching as much of it as I have. How many times can he make the same joke about Schindler's List before it stops being funny? The film's over 30 years old, Ricky.
Not a traditional subject for comedy, the Holocaust. I'll give you that. Probably why Spielberg didn't put a laughter track on Schindler's List. It would have ruined it. I looked up one film on here, Schindler's List.
There's a joke in this special that genuinely could have been told by David Brent during his introductory speech in The Office.
This is off the charts. That's... Wouldn't things have been different if that was Hitler's salute? The whole thing would have been... He goes like, it's Hitler.
Wouldn't he? Oh. Right. Okay. That's...
It's like he didn't even want to tell that joke. But yeah, I reckon I'm going to leave it there. I really didn't want to end this series so negative, you know. Despite all this, I'd still call myself a fan of Ricky Gervais. Whatever he makes next, I'll definitely watch it, because I know what he's capable of. Even if his sitcoms and films haven't been as good as when Merchant was on the scene, it's Ricky's personality that makes him who he is, and I still love hearing his takes to this day. The Golden Globe speeches were all him, and they're objectively the best thing to come out of recent award shows. But when you get to a certain level of fame, it's hard to keep a healthy perspective on the world and your impact on it, and it's frustrating to see the types of topics he holds as important recently. He's still one of my favourite comedians. The endless amount of greatness he's produced throughout his career can't just be thrown away, and I know my opinion on him means jack shit, but I know I'm not alone in feeling this way. But I guess, in the end, Ricky's greatest trick wasn't convincing his fans that he's a comedy god who can do no wrong.
It was convincing everyone else that you couldn't ridicule that idea.
But yeah, in conclusion, Ricky's fans, wherever you are, I love you. That's all from me. Goodbye. Sweet dreams. Mwah.